Okay, hey there YouTube, this is Overlord Reviews with Chance Cheek. This is part 2
A Brightness
of the
from Afar
1992
by
Alone in
Lord
the Dark.
Boleskine, an account of his celebrated voyage to New England, 1824, Alistair Publications, Cambridge.
Following a splendid journey, the sunny harbour came into sight. The locals were much impressed with one's arrival in their midst. One had time to sketch several of them and notice signs of degeneracy. Some children showed one their queer hands that would inspire uneasiness. Upon the promise of a few coins, a child is undertaken to reveal to one a most prodigious phenomenon of a natural order. One admits to being skeptical as to the prodigiousness of the marvel, whatever it may be. Indeed, one suspects it to be little more than an evening stroll to some charming wooden hut situated in the forest hereabouts. One will nonetheless go, for it is always well to submit to such local enthusiasms. One admits to being somewhat flabbergasted. The Milky Way shone like the fires of the apocalypse from the inky celestial vault. Certain distant stars, normally invisible to the naked eye, were clearly visible, glittering indeed with a strange intensity. The heavy clouds that had settled above the village had no hold over that place. It would be pointless to offer here the names of the constellations one perceived in utter clarity. Apart from the interminable length of such a list, one might conceivably risk being charged with exaggeration. The cross cast its shadow on the ground. The sea in the distance was dead calm. Tonight, one will return to that spot and draw those stars. Tomorrow night, one will at last see Halley's comet in all its brilliance. The youngster will carry torches, despite one's developed sense of direction. Honed by years of travel, one feels incapable of finding one's way through the dark forest unaided. The drawings will, one is convinced, set light to the souls of men. Such a moon! One lost count of the craters, so sharply was their definition. Loath as one is to seem excessive in one's appraisal, one cannot but feel that the forest clearing is indeed a place outside the common laws of time and space. Surely it is not an hallucination. How strange to consider that idle conversation, some research in the British Museum, and a voyage to this backward village should culminate in so astounding a discovery. It may be that others have noticed the extraordinary nature of that place. How else could one explain the presence of that cross?
So this is part 2 of the Alone in the Dark. We're going to continue off where we left off in the previous video. We had read a couple of the books. We had found out that the previous owner of the house, whose niece hired us, he unleashed some type of monsters or demons into the house, and they chased him to the attic. And before they could kill him, he hung himself. We also found out that he had an extensive journal and notebook detailing that his father had been in search of things around this house and the hauntings, and he had a demon possess his dreams every night. A lot of spooky stuff, actually. For a game this old, the fact that there's some... The notebook we read yesterday was extremely scary. I did play a little bit, as of yesterday, I played a little bit forward into this game before I started recording. So I do know some upcoming things. I think you guys will like it just as much as I did. But let's just go ahead and play this. Okay, we gotta get the... Okay, so basically, that painting will actually throw an axe at us because it's haunted. So now it can't see us. So we're safe in that regard. And there's another painting on down the way that will shoot arrows at us. See, a lot of this game I've noticed is trial and error. You will die every single time because you can't see it coming, and then you have to load your save game and restart again. It's very tedious and annoying, you know. In my opinion, even if a game was old back then, you should be able to see something coming at you and avoid it. Not, well, it's there, find it, die, restart, hey, guess you know it's there now. So, but the only place I found the arrows in this mansion so far, I found them in this room. And there's nothing else in this room that you really need. So just run real quick, get the arrows. There's going to be 3 of them. And then the spiders won't follow us, so we can just leave the room. They'll stay in the room. And then we head back because we need to go to a room at the end of the hallway. So we're going to go use the arrows and the bow. We're going to take down the other picture. See, I like the angle thing. It reminds me of there's a hallway in the first Resident Evil where it does that type of switch, like twisted type look to it. Okay, let's see. Okay, and we missed. Let's try this one more time. Okay. So now this hallway is safe to walk through. Yes, when you do play this, this game can be purchased at GOG.com. You can buy the trilogy of the original 3. It'll work with newer computers for $5.99, and that's where I picked it up at. This is the copy I'm running. I was very pleased with the purchase. I've noticed the other 2 run well. Reviews to come out soon. I don't know if I'm going to do the trilogy or do them individually, but for $5.99 to get these games, there's a few issues I have with them, but overall, to have something that was this big and this innovative at the time, and it still holds up today.
The Creatures
Not
of
perfectly,
Night
but it still
by
holds up.
Hubertus the Bald. Translated from Latin by his brother in prayer, Fratre Johann Marcus.
Of monstrosity. You who read me know that night engenders monsters and that night creatures exist. The accursed book of Abdul al-Hazred is clear on this matter. That is not dead which can eternal lie. Unhappy he who knows that book. Unhappy he whose eyes alight upon that foulest of texts. Unhappy he who implores the standing stones, for he will free the powers of darkness. Awaiting his of the pit. Stagnant waters are like the memory of men. Beneath the surface calm, clawed beasts await and are known to initiates as the deep ones. Awaiting his prey, the deep one seizes him and drags him down to the abyss. where Dagon, the cruel god, swims and reveres him whose name may not be pronounced. Of libraries, unhappy he who frees the prowler, unhappy he who meets the prowler erring among the books. He generates the vagabond that comes from other spheres. He believes the vagabond does not exist. He will feel the embrace of death, for in the eyes of the vagabond, books are no more than dreams, stone no more than wind. The vagabond knows how to take the breath of the reckless, of strife. He who speaks does not know, and believes he is able to kill the creatures of the night. Folly. Evil is conjured up by science and secrecy. He who prowls among books will perish by the blade. He who flies in the dark caverns will scream in fear. He who swims in the depths will evaporate.
So it's continuing that page over here.
He who believes he knows nothing. He who knows says nothing. Of death. There are domains more terrible than death. That is not dead which can eternal lie. Each creature is conjured up and is not dead, but returns to the origins. A monster, a science. Steel kills the vagabond who never dies. Translator's note. Here ends the manuscript of Hubertus, who died in the library of the convent of Teruel in the year of our Lord 1666. Requiescat in pace.
Okay, so that taught us even more lore towards the Dagon and Cthulhu. A game I'd like to do a review of in the future, Call of Cthulhu, a horror game from 2006, goes into more detail about that. So there's this whole Cthulhu mythos and all that. It's very spooky stuff, so it's easy to do a horror game based around this. Now, don't make fun of me, but when I'm sitting here playing this, I was trying to get some playthrough in last night, and this music was actually kind of freaking me out a little bit because it's completely dark, I'm cold, and then all of a sudden this music starts up and you can hear his footsteps, and I started getting freaked out. And I actually, when I walked into that room and it was all black, it actually jump scared me. So I freaked myself out with a almost 30-year-old game. Let's see, 92, 2002, 26-year-old game, 27-year-old game. I suck at math, I'm sorry. Okay, we can use that. Let's see what we got here. We got a dagger, and another dagger. Some paper, some more paper, and a book, and another book. Now, let me tell you from trial and error, because I edited out a lot of my death scenes, and besides that, I also played ahead, so I know what I was doing, so you guys wouldn't have a 50-minute video of me walking in, because this game, the whole playtime should be about an hour and a half. Well, for me doing the whole trial and error, it would be like 6 hours, 40-minute videos each. So I play ahead, and then I replay and record. So actually, there is a book. One of these books you get, the goldish one. As soon as you read it, you die. So you wouldn't even know that unless you died and found out and didn't read it. So there's one cheap death for you. And also the daggers. There's a monster when we leave the library. He's in the library. He's a library monster. One of those will kill him. The other two will not. So you actually get a clue to that, though, because there's one of these parchments actually tells you about the different daggers. That book right there, that'll kill you. So
Ludwig Prien.
Oh.
Nomine invocatoris, si non sanctificatus es, cave. Si non sanctificatus es, cave.
And there is one cheap death for all of you guys. So let's go back and let's see where we at. So I decided not to edit that shot out, just to kind of prove some of the cheap deaths we have going on here. So we read that, we don't need that anymore. But I think anybody who's into survival horror or who's into retro games or retro PC, I think for the $6 price tag for the trilogy, I think everybody should give this a shot. I'm into retro anything, really. So I especially like retro PC because at that time, PC was so innovative and it was trying new things and trying to do this 3D. So I enjoy a lot of the retro PC games. I've been wanting to play this one for a long time. I own a Windows 98 gateway computer I keep in my collection for some retro games, and I ordered the 1998 release of Alone in the Dark trilogy, but it was not working with that computer or any other computer.
Juan
So
Luis
this is the
Jorge,
first copy of
De
the GOG
Biblioteca.
trilogy that I got to work.
Reflections on the power of the verb in certain texts. Archaeos Publications, 1919, Stafford.
Translation does not alter the occult power contained within such forbidden texts. The malevolent energy is in no way diminished. The spell must be cast aloud and clearly, in certain languages or little-known dialects. Maglafar Fathang. The reader will understand that, in the light of these revelations, I would be foolhardy to continue quoting from the text I have before me. If spoken aloud in its entirety, it would surely awaken powerful and malignant forces. I will go further and say that simple reading of some of the more technical passages describing specific practices is in itself a perilous exercise. The ill-prepared reader can easily fall prey to attacks of demented hysteria, not unlike those described in cases of individuals said to be possessed by evil spirits. I recommend the study made by Zempf, Urbain, Grandier, and Loudon, and the reports made by the Reverend Richard Price concerning a number of astonishing, to say the least, exorcisms carried out in a parish near Providence. Given what I have written, we must be grateful to the librarians of the British Museum, who have never allowed consultation of the work of Al-Azif's startling work, the infamous Necronomicon. Copies of that work do exist, in spite of the zeal of book-burning inquisitors. For proof, we need look no further than the British Museum, of course, and the sealed archives of the Miskatonic University in Arkham. Other examples of books whose evil can be unleashed by any thoughtless reader are von Jutz's Von Unersprechlichen Kulten and the abominable De Vermis Mysteries by Ludwig Prien, whose sordid death should be a lesson to all those tempted by a study of the occult. All those tempted by a study of the occult.
So that, if we would have read that book first, which I knew not to read the other one, that book tells us that the other book was by Ludwig Prem as one that could do some type of damage. But it's that trial and error, you know, you don't know that at first. Okay, so we're just going to use the dagger, and we're going to end him. Okay, and I think this is a good stopping point for this episode, so remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Have a good day, YouTube!